guys. Hello, gorgeous. Just a quick update on my channel's Patreon. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for the great feedback on that Patreon announcement video. Thank you so much for the well-wishing. The Patreon will be going live on December the 1st, so I'll be making an announcement and posting a video about how to get involved with that. If you want to take part in the Patreon, there will be special features for Patreon contributors, such as being able to suggest reviews and take part in cartoon commentaries. So watch for that on December the 1st, and now it's time for another visit to the greatest 80s toy museum there was. Follow me. Last time out, we took a look at the bottom half of strut B of my department store's supersized shelf display, the forces of Cobra and their allies, along with Filmation's opus, Brave Star. We'll start this virtual tour with the Rankin Bass shelf. First up, Wings of Silver, Nerves of Steel, Silverhawks. Partly metal, partly real. This is an almost complete collection of the vintage Kenner figures and vehicles. There's the Field Commander, Quicksilver.
Wing it and go wide.
The Copper Kid. The Mirage Pilot, Bluegrass.
What a session!
The Steel Twins, Steelheart and Steel Will.
Geronimo!
Along with one of the later additions to the team, the Magician Hot Wing.
Go, Gyro!
And the magnificent Mirage Jet.
Mirage to Silverhawks. I'm coming down to get you.
Which can hold 5 Silverhawks and their bird companions. But not very well. Then there's the ancient commander of the Silverhawks, Stargazer.
I am not a day over 400. Well, never mind.
And a couple ultrasonic versions of the Hawks, Steel Will and Bluegrass, with the hot seat deployed and the Hot Licks sound system.
All right, let's show them the hot seat in action.
And the final additions to the team, Moonstriker and Condor.
Welcome to the Silverhawks, both of you.
Aye, Commander.
There's the one-man Silverhawks jet, the Sprint Hawk, piloted by Flashback.
This is Flashback calling the Copper Kid. Flashback calling the Copper Kid.
And the baddies in the back, Monstar's Mob.
The menace of Monstar!
With the super rare tentacled terror, Skyrunner.
Skyrunner, old friend! It's me, your master!
The only missing pieces in this collection are the big versions of the birds, which I have no interest in, and the ridiculously rare ultrasonic Quicksilver, who is only obtainable by
breaking into the money bins on Dollar!
The tune may not have stood the test of time like its sister show by Rankin Bass, but the toys have definitely aged better. A great toy line that's often forgotten by Kenner.
You've shown me enough!
Okay then, time to move on to the other Rankin Bass tune of the 80s.
Silverhawks, dismissed!
Thunder, 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 Thundercats! Ho! Here's a show that I rank right alongside Brave Star for shows that will teach your kids valuable moral lessons and remind you what's important as well. Let's start off with some of my favorite figures from this line. What happens when you cross droids with Ewoks? You get Robear Burbles.
Uh-huh. Herbal, durbly, burble, herbal.
Lion-O's overly protective pal, Snarf. And an original Lion-O. The second version of Tigra, along with the Samurai Hachiman. And one of my favorites, being a Canadian, the Snowman of Hook Mountain.
Who intrudes on the kingdom of the snowman?
There's a few modern items mixed in with the vintage stuff here too. Here's the 2 fantastic large-sized classic figures produced by Bandai a few years ago.
Thundercats!
and a few of Mattel's classics line, the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Wile E. Cat, and Panthro. Godspeed, Mr. Hyman.
Thundercats, here comes Panthro. Ho!
San Diego Comic-Con Classics exclusive Wile E. Kit, and the 3 new Thundercats from the movie.
Thundercat Linkso. Thundercat Pumira. Thundercat Bengali.
And a Snarf pencil topper to stand in as Snarfer, since he never got an official toy. And the Bandai San Diego Comic-Con Classics Lion-O with chromed Sword of Omens. And one of my favorite pieces of this collection, a custom astral plane Jaga. A regular Jaga figure was released in this line, but as a kid, I always wished they had made a clear blue ghostly version.
That's natural enough.
And I was able to find this beautiful custom on eBay a few years ago. Much like Old Ben in Star Wars, although Jaga was no longer physically with the Thundercats, he continued to provide much needed wisdom and moral support to Lion-O from the great beyond.
Lion-O,
Jaga? Is it really you? You're still with me?
I will always be with you, Lion-O.
And then there's my favorite Thundercat of all, probably because he's orange, Tigra. Along with another custom I picked up on eBay, Invisible Tigra.
Where'd he go? Now you don't see me. Now you do.
LJN left easy money on the table back in the 80s by not doing these easy repaints for these 2 clear characters. And there's the baddest ride on all of Third Earth, the Thunder Tank. Like the Silverhawks section, the baddies are in the back. Here's Hammerhand and his Berserkers.
The Berserkers, Berserkers, Berserkers!
And a couple other stinkers, Safari Joe, Rataro, and Groon.
I forged my battle club from Thundranium.
A modern Mum-Ra action figure.
Transform this decayed form to Mum-Ra, the ever-living!
And the ninja that Mum-Ra summoned. Okay, he's actually from the Rambo Force of Freedom line, but he looks just like the Thundercats ninja. And the mutant's answer to the Thunder Tank, the Mutant Fist Pounder.
The Fist Pounder has been waiting for this!
And finally, the vintage large-sized Mum-Ra, and Mum-Ra's Crypt with Mummy Mum-Ra.
Let me get my beauties!
Although I don't think the vintage toys have held up as well as the Silverhawks figures have, the cartoon definitely has more heart and soul than Silverhawks. Rankin Bass produced a lot of wonderful animated programs such as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, The Hobbit, Return of the King, and The Last Unicorn. And although the quality may have eluded much of the Silverhawks show, which ended up being more like a 30-minute toy commercial, Thundercats ended up being very special. Like Brave Star, there's action, but the driving theme of the show is what it takes to be a good person in the face of adversity, defined by the Code of Thundera.
Justice.
Truth!
Honor.
And loyalty!
Thundercats!
Next up is Kenner's answer to Transformers in the 80s, a mighty power that can save the day, M.A.S.K. M.A.S.K was a blend of Transformers and G.I. Joe. You had vehicles that transformed, and they had posable drivers. And the drivers had masks, which had superpowers.
Spectrum laser on.
It's not the most comprehensive collection, just mainly the first-year good guys.
Vehicle codename Gator. Vehicle codename Condor. Vehicle codename Thunderhawk. Vehicle codename Firecracker. Vehicle codename Rhino.
And I also had to pick up one of the later releases, the Volcano, because, hey, it's a working motorized monster truck. And there's also Miles Mayhem's Switchblade helicopter jet. And a couple of those boxes I used to stare at in the store. There's also the massive M.A.S.K playset Boulder Hill.
This is no innocent gas station.
And a bunch of Matt Tracker variations. and I thought Snake Eyes had a lot of variations in the 80s. And since a tracker figure was released in the G.I. Joe 25th anniversary line, I've got a few Joe-scaled mask items too. A bike, which bears a striking resemblance to Condor, and a Camaro to stand in for the Thunderhawk, with Matt Tracker and... Shia?
Just do it!
Okay, it's the only Joe-sized figure I could find that looked like Matt's son, Scott.
You're not funny!
These were 1/24th scale vehicles, unfortunately smaller than G.I. Joe scale, which is 1/18th, which I guess they chose to keep the price point a little lower. I'm a huge fan of vehicles that can hold a driver, especially a posable one like these little fellas, so it's great to finally have M.A.S.K in my collection after all these years. And since they were made by Kenner, everything's still in great shape and the play features still work. Next up, Macho Madness is running wild, yeah! With the LJN Superstars. These were hands down the most fun toys to smash and bash in the 80s. And just like the wrestlers they're based on, man could they take a pounding. They aren't posable, and the sculpt and paint isn't really something you marvel at on the shelf, but they remind me of many times where I'd book my own WrestleMania, Survivor Series, or Royal Rumble and decide who was going over, brother, and who would be doing the J.O.B. My all-time favorites are in the front, the Macho Man Randy Savage, with the lovely Miss Elizabeth, and the Hot Rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper, with his bodyguard, the Ace, Cowboy Bob Orton. There's also the Funker, Terry Funk, who was middle-aged and crazy when this figure came out, Andre the Giant, the British Bulldogs, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, the Junkyard Dog, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Jesse the Body Ventura, and a bunch more up in the ring. I bet I'm not the only one who cracked my ring by giving King Kong Bundy a pile driver, am I? And if you have the ring, you definitely need the big blue salad steel cage. Rumor and innuendo says this was the best cage of them all. And at the top of the shelf is a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars. I didn't get into Star Wars until the early 90s, when Transformers, G.I. Joe, and all the other great 80s toy lines had run their course. So I don't have any childhood nostalgia for Luke and his pals, but I do have some teen nostalgia, which is almost as good. Most of these items are from the 90s Power of the Force relaunch, or reuses of the molds from that line. There's one of my favorite lightsaber duels, Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader, with Luke in his Landspeeder in behind, and Luke in his X-Wing, with a great stand by TS Hobbies, which I covered in an earlier review, that now allows you to display your fighter with S-foils locked in attack position. A 10-inch Vader from the Disney Store. My other favorite lightsaber duel, Luke vs. Vader, with the Emperor looking on from Return of the Jedi. And another great 3-pack from Power of the Force, the Jedi Spirits. And Luke on a speeder bike. And it just wouldn't be a Star Wars toy shelf without some vintage Kenner figures. And then there's the Falcon. The big Millennium Falcon, which features lights and sounds. She'll hold together. Hear me, baby, hold together. This thing is so colossal, there's room for 4 figures in the cockpit. I'll definitely have to dedicate an entire review on just this ship in the future. It's right up there with the USS Flag, the Cobra Terrordrome, and Fortress Maximus for sheer mind-blowing size. The Force will be with this thing always because it's just too big to miss. And that's part 5 of the 80s Toy Museum virtual tour. Next time we'll be taking a look at the Mint on Card wall, which features more Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Silverhawks, and more. Remember to check out my Patreon page on December the 1st if you're interested in helping out the channel. Share if you like the video, leave a memory below, and to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Nerd must stay. Nerd must stay. Nerd must stay. Ho!